We're here at the Clarion Energy news studio, and my guest with me is Jeremy Klingel from Black Veatch. Welcome to the studio, Jeremy.
Thank you.
We're in DISTRIBUTECH in San Antonio 2020, and we were talking about distributed energy resources. What are the things utilities should be thinking about now as they begin to work with more distributed energy resources?
That's a great question, and I think that's one that's on every utility's mind. It's impossible to pull apart distribution and distributed energy resources. There is so much impact from a system point of view, from a resource and generation aspect, that now that interplay and where we're sitting at the nexus of the next generation grid is really driven by distributed energy resources of all size. People hear distributed energy and they think, oh, we must be talking about small solar systems, or we must be talking about DR assets. This is looking at utility scale renewables, battery energy storage that's starting to grow exponentially, electric vehicles that are mobile assets on the grid, and that whole distributed infrastructure that is being wrapped around distributed energy is really at the center of the next generation from a utility point of view, but also the next generation from infrastructure overall.
So other than lowering carbon emissions, what other benefits can be realized from distributed power generation, transmission, and the distribution system?
The two big drivers that we hear in the utility world period are reliability and resilience. And if you think about it, the first thought is it's very easy for utilities to feel comfortable with assets they can control, generation assets they control, traditional transmission. All of a sudden you have this widespread proliferation of all these generation assets that they not only don't own, but they maybe can't control or even see. That seems like a big risk, and it is. From a cybersecurity point of view, from an overall security of the grid, it can cause additional outages if not managed properly. The flip side of that is the technology and the orchestration that can be wrapped around those resources, and we're starting to see this happen, can turn that risk, those million points, into a much more flexible grid that can actually handle a pretty major punch. It is that first step into that self-healing ecosystem that we talk about.
And then lastly, how do you envisage a successful power utility of the future?
In my mind, the utilities will become market makers. They're going to do more than just be a provider of last resort. In essence, they're going to create the rules to aggregate all these heterogeneous assets. Obviously, they're still going to keep the lights on, which is what we all need, but you're going to see a model that looks more akin to the Amazon for electrons and molecules. That doesn't mean they have to own and control everything, but quite frankly, being able to direct, being able to handle market participation and entrance, as well as providing much more reliable and resilient service is important. And we're seeing this happen outside the United States almost more so than we are from a large scale perspective, because you have commercial and industrial customers coming online and working directly with their local utilities to build scalable renewables, to build industrial estates that are in essence the incubation of smart cities. We're looking at connected communities, microgrids. There's an old saying, if you've seen one microgrid, you've seen one microgrid, because they're all so bespoke. What we're seeing outside the US now is we're pulling that into a network system that is creating a more robust infrastructure on the electric grid perspective, but also adding more economic value by creating this connected infrastructure overall.
Well, thank you. That's all the time we have for in studio today, Jeremy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invite.